The moment a security guard tapped delete on Amazon servers, he had no clue he was holding the future of the world's richest man in his hands. But let's rewind, because this story doesn't begin with scandal. It starts with Jeff Bezos himself bragging in an interview about his new chapter in life. He painted a picture of balance, of golden sunsets in Maui, of 8 hours of sleep and quiet mornings filled with meditation and discipline. He spoke about peace and focus, and now those words feel almost laughable, and because just months later, the very empire Bezos built on control, routine, and discipline, waking at 5 a.m., meditating, mapping his schedule down to the minute, started crumbling in the most human, messy way possible. No amount of structure can protect you when your personal life detonates in public. A month ago, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez stood on a Maui cliff, sunlight pouring across the ocean, saying "I do" in what the press dubbed the wedding of the decade. It was the billionaire's dream, a lavish ceremony with Hollywood stars, tech giants, and even political heavyweights watching. Every photo screamed power, luxury, and love. A perfect fairy tale. But history proves time and again, behind the brightest smiles often hide the darkest secrets. And now that fairy tale has curdled into a nightmare threatening not just Bezos' marriage, but the very foundations of Amazon itself. Guests whispered after the fact about little things they noticed that day.
And so then on sleep, I get 8 hours of sleep. I prioritize it, unless I'm traveling in different time zones. Sometimes it's impossible, but I am very focused on it.
Lauren talking just a bit too long with an Amazon executive, her eyes wandering when Bezos spoke to investors, her hand glued to her phone even during the vows. At first, it all looked like nerves, but insiders later said those small things were cracks in the perfect wall, and those cracks split wide open when the rumors began. Lauren Sanchez, often accused of chasing power, was suddenly tied to whispers of a secret affair with a mysterious Amazon executive. And this wasn't just any exec. Colleagues described him as a sharp-suited, unpredictable force in the company, a master strategist with influence reaching all the way to Bezos' inner circle. For the sake of secrecy, they call him M. M wasn't just another name on a badge. He ran one of Amazon's most critical divisions, controlled billion-dollar projects, and worked from a glass-walled office on the 38th floor with views stretching across Seattle, a kingdom within the empire. And soon, word spread that Lauren was visiting the building far more often than anyone expected from the CEO's wife. According to insiders, the day everything unraveled began with a heated fight between Bezos and Lauren. People close to them say it wasn't just about her spending or her private jet lifestyle. It was about control, power, and who really made the rules in the relationship. Hours later, Bezos stormed off to a board meeting. Lauren stayed at Amazon HQ, supposedly to meet with the PR team about shaping her image as Bezos' new wife, but fate had other plans. In the elevator, Lauren ran into M.A. Smile, a casual hello, and within minutes they were side by side in the private executive lounge on the 37th floor. Witnesses said they shared wine, leaning in close, whispering in conversations that stretched far longer than business required. What began as small talk about her new role shifted into confessions. M speaking about the crushing pressure of his position, Lauren opening up about the suffocating expectations of being married to one of the most powerful men alive. In that moment, it wasn't billionaire versus executive, it was just two exhausted people craving connection, and before long, it crossed the line. Hours later, a grainy security camera allegedly caught them in M's office, lips locked in a kiss that looked anything but accidental. Not a quick stolen kiss, but the kind that exposed vulnerability, a need for comfort, and recklessness that could destroy everything. And while the footage was blurred, the fallout was crystal clear. Whispers erupted across Amazon's highest floors, spreading faster than wildfire. But the true chaos wasn't just the kiss, it was how that footage got out. Enter Tom Anderson, a 35-year-old security engineer at Amazon. During a routine check of the surveillance system, he stumbled across the clips. At first, he thought about deleting them quietly. After all, it looked like personal drama, not a company issue. But something stopped him. He hesitated, and that single pause may have set off the scandal of the century. Anderson knew exactly who Lauren Sanchez was, and he knew all about M, the shadowy exec with influence that could shake Amazon from the inside out. The second he saw those clips, he felt the weight of the scandal sitting heavy on his shoulders. This wasn't some office fling caught on camera. This was the billionaire's brand new wife locked in a forbidden kiss with one of his own top executives. Anderson panicked, but instead of deleting the footage like protocol demanded, he copied it onto an encrypted hard drive and shoved it away, praying he'd never have to use it. it, he had no idea that single decision would flip his life upside down forever. It didn't take long for the whispers to spread through the upper echelons of power. The same elites who had raised champagne glasses under the Maui sunset were suddenly advising Bezos to cut ties with Lauren before her name torched his legacy. They warned him that her alleged betrayal could stain him far worse than any business scandal, but the truth was far messier than a clean break. Marcus Stein, one of Bezos' closest allies and a heavyweight investor in Silicon Valley, was among the first to call. "Jeff, I've known you 20 years, Marcus insisted. You've always been the one in control. Don't let a woman destroy everything you've built." But Bezos' reply shocked him. With a rare crack in his icy armor, Bezos whispered, "Marcus, what if it's not her? What if it's me?" That moment of doubt revealed a man unraveling, a billionaire titan suddenly sounding fragile, human, and lost. And that's what made the Maui wedding look even more ironic. Because behind the dazzling display of perfection, the cracks were already forming. The beachfront villa cost a jaw-dropping $2 million just for the weekend. It looked like a Hollywood set. A canopy of flowers flown in from the Netherlands, Ecuador, and New Zealand. Waves crashing dramatically behind the altar. The guest list? Pure global royalty. Oscar winners, Fortune 500 CEOs, political giants, even European aristocrats rubbing elbows under the Hawaiian sky. Leonardo DiCaprio jetted in like a scene from The Wolf of Wall Street. Oprah Winfrey personally brought Bezos a set of rare books, a gift dripping with prestige. Prince Albert II of Monaco showed up, adding his royal seal of approval to the spectacle. 30 event planners worked around the clock to execute every detail. Venetian glassware glittered in the candlelight, orchestras and A-list bands played until dawn, and vintage 96 Dom Perignon flowed like water. Lauren Sanchez floated down the aisle in a $450,000 Valentino gown, her train sweeping across hallways littered with imported orchids and English rose petals. She was glowing, confident, radiant, basking in the cameras. Beside her, Bezos looked like the king of the world, wrapped in a custom Armani tuxedo that screamed power. The media crowned it the wedding of the decade. And for one shining moment, it looked like Bezos had achieved the impossible, conquering business and love at the same time. But insiders swear even during the ceremony, cracks in the facade showed. Bezos, famously obsessive about detail, would frown whenever Lauren casually joked about luxury splurges or impulsive jet setting. Friends noticed their talks sometimes soured into stiff silences, conversations that felt less like romance and more like power struggles. And when the subject turned to money, the tension cut like a knife. Lauren, raised in circles of wealth but never handed unlimited billions, sometimes slipped with comments that betrayed just how different her perspective was from Bezos's razor-sharp financial instincts. Little clashes over what's expensive or what's worth it quietly piled up. The honeymoon glow dimmed, replaced by subtle battles for control. Still, they fought to maintain the illusion of perfection for the cameras. They cruised around the globe on the $500 million Flying Fox super yacht. They stunned at the Met Gala, glittered at Cannes, and strolled red carpets like Hollywood royalty. To the public eye, they were untouchable. But behind closed doors, insiders whispered that Lauren's love for the spotlight and her relentless spending sprees were spiraling. And Bezos was no longer smiling. Bezos had one obsession above all else: controlling the story. To him, it wasn't just about love or even money anymore. After the brutal divorce from Mackenzie Scott, which cost him a staggering $38 billion, Bezos was scarred by headlines that made him look weak. He vowed never again to let the world see him stumble. His image, his reputation, his carefully crafted aura of dominance, that was everything now. So every headline about Lauren's shopping sprees or jet-setting lifestyle wasn't just gossip. It was a direct threat to the empire he'd built. Even his philanthropy, those grand public gestures of generosity, risked being drowned out by whispers that his new wife was reckless with power and money. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Fresh off their honeymoon, Bezos and Lauren settled into not one but two palaces, a $165 million Beverly Hills estate, and a glassy Seattle penthouse that overlooked his empire. The fairy tale looked perfect from the outside, but inside, the cracks were spreading fast. One winter morning, the couple arrived at Amazon headquarters together. For most people, walking into work with your spouse means nothing. For Bezos, it was strategic, a performance staged for employees, investors, and the press. He wanted to show that Lauren belonged in his world of billion-dollar boardrooms and global power moves. But the illusion shattered almost instantly. Behind the smiles, they had already fought that morning, a heated argument over Lauren allegedly using Amazon's prized Gulfstream G650ER jet to slip away on a private trip to Switzerland. Witnesses said Bezos' tone turned frosty, his words sharp as glass. Lauren's face stiffened in defiance, the tension radiating between them even as they strutted into the futuristic glass lobby of the Amazon spheres. Bezos rushed off to a 3-day board marathon on artificial intelligence, leaving Lauren in the hands of her assistant. But that's when fate, or maybe temptation, stepped in. At the panoramic windows of the first floor, Lauren caught sight of M. The pause, the smile, the lingering eye contact. And soon she was walking straight into his office. M, the magnetic strategist running Amazon's most delicate partnerships, was famous for making people feel seen, even safe. Over coffee in the plush executive lounge, they began with polite small talk. He asked about her transition into the tech world. She teased about navigating boardrooms filled with men who underestimated her. But slowly, the conversation sank deeper. M spoke about the crushing loneliness at the top, how no one truly understood the weight of steering billion-dollar deals. Lauren admitted her own suffocation, confessing that being married to one of the most powerful men alive stripped her of freedom she once took for granted. For the first time in weeks, she laughed, a carefree sound that echoed down the sterile hallway. And when her hand brushed against M's arm, it was subtle, fleeting, but in a building where every detail is dissected, it felt explosive. That evening, as Bezos locked himself in a boardroom, deep in a presentation about the future of Amazon Web Services, whispers began to swirl. Because Lauren and M were spotted again, this time slipping into his corner office, a sleek glass chamber overlooking Elliott Bay. What happened behind those walls? No one knows for sure, but theories run wild. Some claim they crossed every line, diving headfirst into something more than friendship. Others swear the blurry security camera only showed a clumsy, vulnerable kiss. Two lonely souls desperate for escape. But whatever the reality, it didn't matter. Within hours, the rumors had ignited across Amazon's highest ranks. Executives traded coded messages, whispered conversations burned through corridors, and the scandal was officially alive. By the very next morning, whispers had already reached Bezos' inner circle, and they weren't just whispers anymore. Shady, grainy images started popping up, passed hand to hand like contraband. Suddenly, what began as a quiet hallway rumor exploded into a full-blown scandal threatening to rattle the foundation of Amazon itself. And right in the center of it all stood Tom Anderson, the unlucky security engineer who first discovered the footage. Tom was stuck in an impossible bind. His Amazon contract made it crystal clear, exposing private data about management was forbidden. But what he'd stumbled across wasn't just gossip. It was evidence with the power to shake Wall Street, topple reputations, and drag millions of shareholders into chaos. Erase it, and he'd be complicit. Reveal it, and he'd be branded a traitor. Either way, his life was about to change forever. Inside Amazon's glass towers, the air turned heavy. Conversations grew hushed, every glance loaded with suspicion. The alleged affair between Lauren Sanchez and M wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was powered by something deadly in the corporate world, digital evidence. Multiple insiders swore they'd seen the blurry surveillance clip labeled Video 92. No sound, fuzzy images distorted through the glass walls, but unmistakable in what it showed. Lauren and M far too close for comfort. Alongside it came still shots pulled directly from the system, and even worse, employees working late had quietly snapped their own photos through the office glass with their phones. The secret was out, in pixels, in whispers, in undeniable fragments of truth. That combination of images and eyewitness chatter lit a fire across Amazon's upper floors. Some dismissed it, calling it harmless flirtation twisted by office politics. But others took it as proof of betrayal, a violation of trust inside the very core of Bezos' empire. For Jeff, the leak cut deeper than a personal humiliation. To his closest confidants, he admitted it felt like a brutal challenge to his leadership itself. How could something so explosive unfold inside his own headquarters under the watch of hundreds of loyal employees? For a man obsessed with control, it was the ultimate insult. Meanwhile, M tried to spin the narrative. He brushed it off as nothing but a professional chat exaggerated by gossip. But once the video evidence surfaced, his excuses collapsed. Forced onto unpaid leave, M scrambled to hire a criminal defense lawyer, a desperate move that only made the whispers louder. By then, the scandal was slipping through Bezos's grip. It leaked beyond Seattle's glass towers, trickling into the inboxes of former employees, tech journalists, and hungry analysts. The gossip spread like wildfire. Bezos's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Malibu friends, Manhattan billionaires, old Silicon Valley allies. Some offered sympathy, others barked out PR strategies, urging him to act fast before his empire's reputation shattered. But Bezos did what he always does when cornered. He went silent. He ignored calls, blocked out advice, and hoped the firestorm would burn out on its own. Except this time, it didn't fade. Hour by hour, the scandal swelled bigger, and his advisors' voices grew sharper, more urgent, less forgiving. The richest man in the world was about to face a reckoning he couldn't buy his way out of. By day 3, the whispers had turned into a roar. Bezos could no longer ignore the storm. The scandal was splashed across encrypted group chats, whispered in private dinners, and dissected in hushed corners of boardrooms. His advisors, once deferential, now pressed him relentlessly. They told him this wasn't about love anymore. This was survival. One longtime legal strategist spelled it out bluntly. Jeff, this isn't a tabloid problem. This is a corporate crisis. If you let this narrative spiral, Amazon's stock could take a hit. Regulators could start sniffing around. Investors will lose faith. You have to act. The warning hit Bezos hard. For a man obsessed with control, the thought of losing grip over his empire was more terrifying than losing Lauren. Meanwhile, Lauren was spiraling in her own way. She had always thrived in the spotlight, feeding off the cameras and the red carpets. But now the attention had turned ugly. Paparazzi swarmed outside their Beverly Hills estate, tabloids ran headlines about the billionaire's betrayal, and friends whispered about her loyalty. According to insiders, she broke down in tears more than once, accusing Bezos of letting his people paint her as the villain. But behind those tears, there was fire. Sources close to her say Lauren started reaching out to allies in Hollywood and the media, trying to flip the narrative. "I'm not the problem," she allegedly told a friend. "I'm being set up." Whether she believed it or not, the claim added fuel to an already raging inferno. Inside Amazon's headquarters, the paranoia was at fever pitch. Executives began locking their phones in drawers during meetings, terrified of being accused of leaks. Security teams swept offices for bugs, and the board demanded answers, not just about M, but about Bezos himself. How had the most disciplined man in business allowed such chaos to bloom in his own house? As the pressure mounted, Bezos finally snapped. During a late-night meeting with his inner circle, he slammed his fist on the table, shattering a glass of sparkling water. "I built this company from nothing," he growled, "and I won't let a rumor or a mistake tear it apart." His voice shook, not just with anger, but with fear. For the first time in years, Jeff Bezos looked vulnerable in front of his own people, but the damage was already spreading beyond Seattle. Wall Street analysts began dropping subtle hints in investor calls, warning that Amazon's leadership was distracted by personal matters. A few hedge funds quietly dumped shares, not waiting to see how the storm would end. For a company that prided itself on ruthless efficiency, the whispers of scandal were poison. And then came the bombshell. Late one evening, another clip surfaced, this one clearer, longer, and far harder to dismiss. It allegedly showed Lauren and M inside his office, the tension between them impossible to deny. No more blurry shadows, no more plausible denials. This was proof. The moment Bezos saw it, something in him shifted. According to one aide, he sat in silence for nearly a full minute, his hands trembling as he replayed the grainy footage. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He simply whispered, "So it's true. The empire he'd built on discipline, control, and order had been pierced by something he couldn't regulate: human weakness." By the next morning, the scandal was no longer containable. Journalists from New York to London were circling, billionaire rivals smirked behind closed doors, and inside Amazon's headquarters, employees traded looks that said everything without a word. The king's crown was slipping. The question wasn't whether Jeff Bezos could survive the scandal. It was how much of his empire would burn with him. Among the voices weighing in on Bezos' storm were titans like Bill Gates, who spoke from the scars of his own scandal, and Warren Buffett, who urged him to act fast if he wanted to salvage his legacy. Their advice was simple yet chilling. Reputations take decades to build but can be torched in a single day. Quick, decisive moves weren't optional. They were survival. Everyone braced for a brutal fallout. Stock prices crumbling, investor confidence vanishing, Amazon's partnerships unraveling. But just when the empire seemed seconds away from collapse, the twist no one saw coming emerged. The man holding the fate of Bezos, Amazon, and even Wall Street wasn't a billionaire or a politician. It was Tom Anderson, the ordinary security engineer who had stumbled onto the infamous footage. Instead of cashing in by selling the tapes to tabloids or blackmailing executives for millions, Tom did the unthinkable. He walked straight into Bezos' office and laid down a full report. The truth, raw and unfiltered. What the world thought it saw wasn't reality at all. The grainy video didn't show an affair. It captured something far more human, a moment of comfort misinterpreted and spun into scandal. Lauren, shattered after a vicious argument with Jeff, was in tears. M, who had been through his own devastating divorce, recognized the pain. He reached out not as a lover, but as a human being. That so-called kiss wasn't stolen passion. It was a soft kiss on the forehead, a gesture of empathy, a reminder that she wasn't alone. Tom's digging revealed even darker truths. The scandal wasn't an accident, it was a setup. A senior executive, burning with jealousy over M's rise inside Amazon, had deliberately fanned the flames. He leaked half-truths, twisted the story, and weaponized gossip in a bid to bring M down and seize power for himself. It was a corporate coup disguised as a love scandal. When Bezos saw the real picture, the weight of his mistake crushed him. He realized he had nearly destroyed his own marriage and torched the loyalty of a trusted executive because of manipulations crafted by someone hiding in the shadows. The tables turned overnight. M was cleared of every accusation. In fact, Bezos promoted him, citing his professionalism and calm under fire. Lauren, blindsided and humiliated by the smear campaign, received a public and private apology from her husband. Together, they vowed to rebuild, not just their marriage, but the trust they had let slip away. Insiders say this crisis forced them into deeper honesty than they'd ever had before. And Tom Anderson, the man who risked his career by putting truth above fear, Bezos didn't just thank him, he elevated him, making him the head of Amazon's new ethics and security division, a department designed to ensure no one could weaponize lies like this again. As for the real villain, the vice president who orchestrated the disinformation campaign, he was fired, dragged into court, and left to face lawsuits that could bankrupt him for good. The lesson was brutal but clear. Even in a world dripping with billions, jets, and power, what matters most is trust. Honesty, the courage to fight lies even when the lies are seductive. Bezos walked away shaken but also humbled. His obsession with control shifted. He finally learned that power isn't about micromanaging every detail. It's about knowing where to place trust when chaos strikes. Lauren and Jeff emerged battered but bonded. They set new rules, rebuilt communication, and leaned on M, who shockingly became one of their closest allies. His hard-won sobriety and scars from the past even inspired Amazon to launch new wellness protocols, giving employees resources for personal crises. And for Bezos, the irony was staggering. The 8 hours of sleep he once bragged about became more than a talking point. It became sacred, a daily ritual to pause, breathe, and reflect in a world that never stops spinning. So when Tom Anderson finally pressed that delete button, he wasn't erasing proof of guilt. He was wiping away a false record, a lie planted by greed. The real record, the one of truth, stayed intact. That single act didn't just save the world's richest man from ruin, it proved that even in cutthroat business, honesty and courage can still win against jealousy and betrayal. And that's the end of this explosive saga. What do you think? Was Bezos lucky to have Tom step in, or was this scandal bound to change his empire no matter what? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and share it with your friends. See you on the next one.